The desolation is spelt immediately. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Nameless City, a faux PS1 style exploration game inspired by the works of H.P. Lovecraft. Now, in this narrative-driven game, we are set with the task of exploring an ancient, nameless city lost to time, and possibly even older than humanity itself, for whatever implications that carries. It actually sort of reminds me in its premise of At the Mountains of Madness, so I am really intrigued. Thank you to the developer for providing me with this early Steam key. I could sit here and speculate on what this is going to be about, but I'd much rather get in and start exploring for myself. So let's try it. Remote in the desert of Araby lies the nameless city, crumbling and inarticulate. It must have been thus before the first stones of Memphis were laid, and while the bricks of Babylon were yet unbaked. There is no legend so old as to give it a name, or to recall that it was ever alive. It was of this place that Abdul Ahazred, the mad poet, dreamed of the night before he sang his unexplained couplet. That is not dead which can eternal lie, and with strange eons even death may die. And here we find ourselves, under the setting sun, the middle of the desert, and ancient pillars surrounding us. I wonder how such a place could have remained hidden for so long, or what led to us finding it now.
When I came upon the nameless city, in the ghastly stillness of unending sleep, it looked at me, chilly, from the rays of a cold moon amidst the desert's heat, and as I returned its look, I forgot my triumph at finding it.
And now not only has night fallen, it seems a sandstorm has come to cover the city, only in that direction, as if this is its way of hiding in the night. I've always found archaeology and horror to be such a fitting combo, because it's everything with your, like he said, pride at finding such a thing, and yet fear and trepidation at moving forward unsure of just what unknown history it is you're walking through. The only thing we really know about them is that they were here and now they're not. And that doesn't happen for no reason. Which means that they knew about some kind of threat, some kind of danger that we don't. What is that? It seems like the storm is picking up as we get closer. A crumbled tower? The sandstorm rages with relentless fury. I shall set up a camp nearby and wait for this fierce wind to subside. Do we want to set up camp? I mean, who knows what can crawl up out of these ruins that we'll wake up to? Let's sleep till morning. With these still images, it sort of reminds me of like 90s games, which I suppose from the graphical style is quite fitting. And by morning's light, we continue our exploration. At least the folks in At the Mountains of Madness had a whole party, had airplanes in their capacity, but us, it's just our own feet in our tent. Oh, look at that. We can actually watch the morning sun rise, casting shadows over this place. Oh, wait, does that mean that we have to take the tent with us? Oh, I wonder if there'll be like a day-night cycle that we have to sleep by. I'm assuming not, but I would hate to leave it behind if that were the case. Press space to crouch. Oh, that's not just a beam blocking our path. Spikes coming from the walls. The wall lacks carvings or inscriptions, leaving me unable to determine if the inhabitants of the city were humans. If they were humans. So, I wonder, do you already have research that leads you to believe that might not be the case? Or maybe some pre-human civilization before, like, biologically modern humans? Oh, but we're in, and this whole place is opening up before our eyes. It looks like those spikes were mounted by protrusions in the walls or openings. And this one's fallen down. It appears that this oddly shaped rock has fallen from the structure. Strangely, its texture is rough, as though the arid winds of the desert haven't eroded it. Yeah, I get the feeling this is going to be the kind of game that wants us to really dig deep. I was really worried that this would be just kind of a generic horror game set within some ruins, but no. The horror here is all within the implications. We've got to observe and wonder. That's what this type of horror is all about. That seemingly dims as I approach. Like it doesn't want to be found. Yeah, no, it is staying off. Okay, maybe we can't do anything with that yet. I don't seem to have a flashlight. These are staircases leading upward, but it seems some rock has fallen into the way. Now, I'm seeing more and more of these things, and I can't help but think that they sort of look like teeth, don't they? But what creature could produce such teeth? And more importantly, how did these people get them? There's sound coming from this wall, movement. A strange barrier obstructs the path ahead. Its surface is made from an unearthly material. It repels my hand when I dare to touch it, as though it were a force rather than a physical substance. You know, I was all ready to criticize this, but they actually found a way to make an in-game barrier, a force field, actually interesting and relevant. There's some markings over here, but I get the same message. Okay, well, maybe we can find something that allows us through. If we were, it would probably be inside those vaulted rooftops over there, but yeah, it actually looks like some structure of, like, religious significance if I were to compare it to something from my own experience. We can enter these ruins here, but something else I've really got to praise right now is the general lack of soundtrack. It actually hammers in the desolation, the loneliness, by having only the sounds of the wind occasionally and our own footsteps. It doesn't need to sell us on what this is. We're meant to take it in by ourselves. And I can hear some bubbling sound from the bottom of what looks to be a well. Muffled aquatic noises emanate from the pit before me. Could there be a subterranean mass of water beneath the city? Well, they would have to get it from somewhere. Now, the only other thing I can think to try is that opening over there. So I'm not seeing anything here, although I am seeing more structures. In fact, it looks like there's carvings along that one edge. Now, navigating in the dark won't be easy, but what if... we can bring out our torch. And there's the soundtrack. Let's find out if it's worth it or not. There's something hiding back there. Behind that pillar, I can get a glimpse of a strange glyph. Its mere sight makes me shiver. Well, how could it not? You're potentially looking at a language that no human has ever laid eyes on before. What do you think it would do to you to hear it? Some kind of statue, some kind of effigy? If I imagine a creature like that, scaled up, maybe that could account for the teeth. But did something like that actually walk the earth at one time? The statue appears to be an ancient idol of an unfathomed faith. The grotesque eyes and teeth are strangely more intricate than the rest of the image. The sole imagination of the perverse rituals officiated here to venerate this deity sends my mind to wander in a sea of despair and madness. Something's happening to me. Look on the edges of the screen. Oh, look at the top right. What is that meant to indicate? It's like it's taking over my nervous system just to look at it. Actually, it doesn't seem to get any better to look away. Signs of the ancient race that dwelled here adorn the primitive altar. This desolate place is reminiscent of an ancient temple. What forgotten and dreadful rites would have occurred here? It's like someone would have laid down on this slab, placing their head amid the teeth. Maybe as if offering themselves up to be eaten. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 eyes. So they worshipped these seven-eyed beings. And you know, the fact that those teeth haven't degraded does not suggest that they're made of local materials. Did they have the real deal? We don't really need the torch here, but it looks like the sun may already be setting. Have these paths been blocked by time? It doesn't look like it. It looks like this is actually how they traversed these temples. We're crawling very, very deep. And from here, we may not be able to get back up. No, we can't, unless we find a way out. Is this wise? We've already learned so much. How can we stop now? Still looking at these bricks, I can't help but think that maybe I shouldn't step off the path. I can't see very far around myself, but yeah, periodically that wall is lit by some purple glow, but I can't find the source. Not by looking up, not by looking around. That field of view is making this difficult. No, I think there's something moving around a corner up ahead. You're rotating, that's why. It's the pillars casting the shadows. And there's a strange sound emanating from you that I can't help but think of as some kind of unearthly choir. Discordant in a way that sounds like the singer is as unnerved as I am by it. This thing has been propelled for thousands of years at least.
I felt something trying to establish contact with me. Yet I felt its voice inside my brain. Its faint whisper still lingers around this place. There shall be another glyph around.
Well, you certainly speak in the cadence of Lovecraft. What we just saw, like, was it space? Was it our neurons unfolding? Like what? I guess the two are similar in appearance, but it's at this point that I will talk about something mentioned in the email in which I was given this key, in that this game does use generative AI for the purpose of creating unearthly-looking images. In other words, things that are difficult to comprehend at a glance, which it certainly was. For how controversial it is, and for how often it appears in videos, I'm not sure if I've ever given my thoughts on generative AI. I know a lot of people are like vehemently against it even existing, especially artists, and I definitely see both sides of the issue. Even ignoring the obvious potential for disinformation, which is a whole other can of worms that I'm not even going to get into. You know, it's going to reduce a lot of work for artists if people and companies decide that, you know, a little bit of a hit in quality is worth not having to really pay much for it. At the same time, you know, there's cases like, say, a game like Ready or Not, something which has like a million little environment assets where it may not be cost effective to get people to do it, in which case, you know, it's either you use AI or you don't get it at all. I'm also not going to touch on the potential for copyright issues because, again, that's a whole other tangent that is going to stop this video dead. But then there's the question of quality. You know, can it be just like as good as regular drawn art by artists? And the answer is I tend to think that a lot of it sort of ends up looking the same if you try to make it realistic. If you try to just replace the art that artists are doing, it tends to come out kind of bland. If anything, I think this right here is the exact perfect use case for it because we're going backwards. Remember like 5 or 6 years ago when this stuff was like kind of just starting out and AI art was completely incomprehensible to look at? One of those things where you look at an image that looks like it's something recognizable at first and then you realize you can't identify even one single component? That works really well, I think, with Lovecraftian horror, so we'll see how that manifests here. But until we get more of that, let's move on and see what we can learn about these people. I feel wrong stepping off the stones. The city is adorned with these cryptic glyphs. I'm haunted by the certainty that I have seen this sigil during my studies of the occult. Yet its meaning is shrouded by the gray veil of time. So does that mean that other aspects of this civilization have been uncovered before? Okay, and all of you give the same thing. I feel like I can hear something. Like a hum from my left. I see something too. Oh, it's another of these barriers. You know, I'm thinking with how low these ceilings are, is it possible that if this wasn't created by humans that they didn't walk but slithered or crawled? Another one of those devices in here. Something tried to speak with me last time. You're a different shape, though. Actually, no. You're the same shape as what we saw on the barrier in the main area. If you speak to us, will you allow us to pass through? Night has fallen. Oh my god. That in the bottom looks like...
He's feeling again a sharp pain inside my skull. However, the meaning of these glyphs has begun to unveil itself to me. I have started to transcribe them into my journal, as I am convinced they hold the key to unlock the secrets of the city.
But yeah, looking at that image, the thing on the bottom, it was vague, but it sort of looked like maybe one of the beings from the statue. And the rest, in pockets, seemed more like writhing masses of worms or something. Open Glyphs Journal. Nouns, verbs. Oh. Cough and dispel. We speak these words, and we can pass through. It feels as though I should be able to find a way to disable it. I think I found that way. Oh! I've got to use them together. It's a command followed by the key. That is so cool. And you know what? I have to say, I actually like the fact that it didn't tutorialize me on that. It gave me a couple of elements and basically told me figure it out. Which I normally don't like in games, but like, it was so narrow, the possibilities. My God. For a second I thought you were the silhouette of something sitting there. In fact, it seems that you are. More little statues, but you don't have glowing eyes. In fact, you're not glowing from the mouth either. It's like you're all watching me enter. Like you were waiting for someone all this time. What just happened? I thought I was stepping out onto daylight, but it all just wiped away as I stepped out. Have I really been in there for a full day? This device before me bears a strong resemblance to a sun clock. However, after seeing the raging wind that arises at nightfall, I'm drawn to the supposition that this civilization was more fascinated by the lunar mysteries than by the glare of the sun. Is it possible, then, that they were nocturnal as well? I mean, they certainly had light sources. Nothing around that way. This FOV is killing me.
The sandstorm emerges from the insides of the city, and then shrouds the ruins at night. I shall go back to the camp. My head is hurting again. It looks like the city doesn't want to be explored at night.
You're thinking this is done with intention, that this is actually some kind of deliberate defense mechanism installed in the city. Well, we can hop down here and head back out this way. I am so thankful to be back surface side. But it kind of seems like the damage to our sanity has been done. We've got to venture into the storm, a storm which doesn't pass through the center, but which instead whirls around the outside. I wonder why only hide it at night? Is that the only time they conceived that something would be able to find it? Another morning. You know, if this were me, I would consider moving the tent inside, but getting it under all this might be a bit of a chore. Still, fascinating finds so far. We're learning their language, we're learning that they had religion, that they had some sort of power source, and that something may still be speaking through it. I also can't help but notice that I occasionally see, like, little pink particles moving up around me. I don't see them anymore. And it seems like whatever harm was done to my psyche last night has been warded away by sleep. We should now have the means to enter. And it doesn't seem to matter which order I use these glyphs in. This structure is decorated with these unfathomable symbols. It must have held significance for the inhabitants of the city. Or perhaps it connects to an important monument for their civilization. And, we can't look at what those ones are up there. Those are in red, not purple. Possibly disabled, or maybe it denotes something different. The material of this small stone fluctuates and glows dimly. Perhaps the inhabitants of the city used these luminescent rocks to illuminate, or as a beacon. Why not both? Oh no. Oh no, you want us to do real advanced crawling now. You'd never get me to. But at least we can still use our torch. On the far side of this precipice, a grand structure has been carved in stone. An unnatural glow emanates from its sides, as though this eldritch monument was inviting me to unearth its mysteries. This place is deep. We were only on what was essentially the outer wall. These statues are exhaling a turbulent gust of sand and gravel. Is this phenomenon a whim of nature? Or were these sculptures built for a purpose that has been buried in the eons? Maybe this is the mechanism from which the sandstorm arises every night? It's actually pushing me forward. If we try to walk through at the wrong time, we could be knocked straight over the ledge. A glyph has been etched upon this rock, a symbol that I've studied during my research of the occult. The Elder Sign. Curiously, an unexplainable sense of security envelops me when I'm near this glyph, as if its very form were a ward against the dreadful secrets of the city. Can we actually speak it? No. So, I see. We can use this probably to push you into the pit. Alright, from what I'm gathering, Koth is the name of these barriers, and we can state that we want to dispel it. Maybe we should step off to the side before we let that go. But it doesn't seem to have had any effect. Perhaps if we... No, it doesn't push us all that way, but I do see the little save symbol appearing as I walk up to it, so it's acting as a checkpoint. If we stay just beyond you, we won't get pushed aside, but this we can't get far enough away. I wonder, can we invoke the appearance of one of these things? No, it doesn't seem so, unfortunately. Are these their structures, or is this some kind of natural canyon? Because it certainly doesn't look like one. The way their paths snake along these corridors, all culminating in the highest point. Alright, I've got to figure out how to get past this thing. Maybe if I start from here... yep, that's kind of what I thought. But we come back right here. There's got to be some way to make this reappear. Ooh, maybe we can crawl under it? Ah, we can. Alright, I hadn't noticed that it wasn't coming out of the lower ones. What are these structures? Oh, this is the side of these devices. Some of them are blowing out of the bottom, but not all. That's it. We've got to make our way along this path. I'd bet even that maybe it wraps all the way around, like some sort of pilgrimage. It's like it's trying to keep us on a very specific path. Only the correct footsteps will allow us to get to where we're going. Maybe something they mapped out through trial and error over generations? That may be a bit of a stretch, but I'm in a speculating sort of mood. Now the question is, why would I actually want to unglyph this? That can't be what I think it is, can it? Upon a distant cliff, the skeletal remains of a colossal animal repose in eerie stillness. Could it be that the inhabitants of the city once dwelled alongside this titanic creature? It looks a little thin to be the ribcage of the statues that we saw, but that is evidence that things like that once walked the earth. In some time, possibly before the time of humans. Maybe older than the dinosaurs from the look of it. I mean, for something that large to survive in an environment like this... there you are. You'll spring to life as I get close. I love how this is actually about exploration and letting the images speak for themselves instead of just letting the narrator tell us everything or, you know, falling victim to horror tropes that it would feel need to be there. Okay, there's no way through, but maybe we can relieve the pressure by going... You. This is such a cool mechanic. No, it doesn't seem to have had any effect except to trap me here. So, you know, that kind of sucks. I don't know if I just didn't notice it before, but after dying, these effects seem to have come back, at least momentarily. Oh, but there's a corner that it seems I missed. And a light glowing from within. Oh, come on, you can stand up. Are you the thing to make this appear? I bet you are, because you're... Look, you're inverted from dispel. Oh. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to transport myself to the astral plane. This one's gonna make me work for it. Am I really here, or is this some kind of vision? It's like there's endless waves moving beneath me, but it's like I can see their ripple through the ground. Almost as if it's an overlay to my own vision. Endless beacons all throughout. And what is this? It looks like a crystal ball on a pedestal, but with legs that make me think it's going to get up and walk away. Before me lies an alien device. A lifeless orb resting above an unnatural pedestal. Its ever-shifting surface is mesmerizing, as if it beckons me to unveil its mysteries. That's how I feel about literally everything, man. Well, obviously I'm gonna touch it. It opened 2 of the doors. What if I touch it again? It's a simple switch. But we can't get at that one. Okay, well, because it doesn't have the symbol on it, I'm guessing that Cough Dispel won't work on this. No, in fact, we don't have our book at all. Which suggests that this is something that's happening in our mind. Maybe something is trying to judge if we're worthy. It doesn't seem good to stare at this for too long. It's like some insulation around a wire or a pipe. Or at least that's the closest thing I can think of. A noise is coming from it, but where does it go? I don't know why, when I'm doing exploration games like this, I always feel compelled to speak as if I'm talking to a recorder that might be found in case I'm not. Like I need to document everything. Okay, we don't want to get too close, I guess. Can we turn that off? Oh, it can be cut off. I can see even more structures in the distance, but nothing in particular to call me to them. I want to get over to here. Another of these things bisects my path. So let's open this. It opens the door to that guy, but now I can't reach him. We have a conundrum. Now, I don't actually know what's going to happen if I stay in the presence of this for too long, but maybe I can get just close enough to touch you? No, in fact, you're just out of reach. Okay, then I'm not really sure what to do. Well, look, I'm gonna leave you off like this with the idea that maybe if we were to somehow stop that from somewhere else or something. Well, look, because you're the thing that we could change. Well, look, because you're the thing that we could change, I'm gonna leave you and see if going around can't maybe help us out a bit. There was a way back through here. Oh, and now you're here. We actually can't go back the way we came. Okay, so you guys seem to actually be... Oh no, you closed that door, I getcha. But what if we were to do one of these? That's just you. You can be moved farther back. Something didn't like that. Something really didn't like that. And the thing is, it's impossible to know what exactly I did wrong. Maybe it's just a result of moving that beam so close. All I know is that in that three-eyed configuration, before I saw the rest of them, I couldn't help but think of the side of the head of one of those beasts. That's why I looked around. But maybe now we can do something? Yes, yes, yes. It's not always obvious what these things will affect. It's not always just the next thing over. But now, in the interest of this... Okay, that doesn't really do anything for me. But wait, what are you? Oh, you're what happens when one of these beams is focused right on you. It was like the surface of the sun. Well, I'm not seeing an obvious way around, so why not go for distance, right? Here's what we were looking for. But wait. My sense of direction is incredibly thrown off by this. Well, it's not like a gift horse in the structure that I guess could loosely be called a mouth. Speaking of a horse, you're like some kind of horse gator if we consider that a...
I felt my consciousness expand, encompassing every corner of the universe, and from the depths of reality, voices whisper to me, ancient and forbidden knowledge. These voices possess the secret of reshaping the very essence of matter, and they bestow that power to me.
Is that an accurate read of what's happening here, or is that arrogance? Because so often that's the downfall of the protagonists of these stories. They learn a little bit, and they think that means they know everything. But of course, there's always something they didn't know. Okay, we should now be able to block these at will. Cough cast. There we are. Oh, that is so cool. All right, cough cast. Do you see how when a game really lets you, like, figure things out like this, it can make it so that something as simple as opening and closing doors actually feels like an accomplishment? It doesn't have to be anything crazy, just like stuff like this to make you feel like you're something of a participant in this story, you know? I mean, as an archaeologist, you would think that's all we would ever expect to be, is a participant. But then again, those voices speaking to us seem to be getting louder and louder. I'm starting to get the impression that by speaking this language, I'm doing something unwelcome. In fact, is it even possible that the strain on me is increasing as I do this? It's certainly starting to seem that way. It's giving me places where I don't need to do this, and maybe I should take every opportunity to use the feat the creator gave me. Whichever creator that may be, after seeing all this, I'm convinced that there has to be one. Night is falling again, but I'm seeing more structures, more temples, more teeth, which now that I'm looking, actually adorn the walls of the cavern as well. Not cavern, canyon, but you get the idea. The point is, it's almost like we're climbing down something's throat. Like this whole thing is a mouth. Speaking of mouths, okay, we can cast on you. An enormous and eerie statue looms before the entrance of this colossal monument, as an ever-watchful sentinel that guards the mysteries buried in the depths of the Nameless city. And your eyes, very much still watching. Not glowing like the other one, not empty like the smaller statues. Just watching, and those particles have returned as we get closer. Like a bleeding, extended mouth of a skull. We're just deposited back here. The middle of the day, it's as if everything after going down here just didn't happen. Was all of that, including our return, not real? We've still got cast in our book. Those barriers are still up. And now that I've seen a few examples, I honestly do think that this is a good use of generative art. Like I said, I don't think it's very interesting when you use it to produce a normal image, but when it's really out there and incomprehensible like that, it can sort of function like a Rorschach test, where you kind of see what you want or what you expect to see in it. I've always found that really fascinating about it, how things just really dimmed all around us. How in normal art, it's an impression of something usually, but with this, it's your impression of what you're looking at. This time we can't hear any screams, no sanity effects. My most primal instincts compel me to cease the exploration of this city. But my insatiable curiosity is more intense than the most primordial of fears. Wow. I am making a big mistake. The fact that this is the point of no return and not anything that came prior, I should have taken that as a gift. More statues, this depicting a single eye. Actually, they look sort of similar to those structures that the beams were shooting out of in our vision. What is this? The sediment that clings to the wall bears a resemblance to the remains of an ancient mural, though I can't grasp any recognizable form in this art. I'm left to ponder the possibility of whether, in the deepest corners of this building, any painting has survived the relentless passage of time. It seems like here, more than any other structure so far, we're blurring the line between art and architecture and nature, to the point where we can't even be sure, with how far removed they are from us, if this wasn't some way in which they express themselves. Yeah, over on this opposite wall is something entirely different. But you're giving us the same description. And you immediately recognize this as a door? A massive door of brass is resting on the wall of this gloomy passage. In the darkness, as I open the door, I find myself chanting over and over again a phrase from one of the Lord Dunsany's tales. The unreverberate blackness of the abyss. Punctuating these moments, these times when we are the most absorbed in our mind, in our thoughts, by recalling what I assume is lines from literature. Those which best encapsulate what we're going through, but which, when said back to ourselves out loud in this moment, kind of seem like we ourselves are descending into madness.
Darkness that occupies this tunnel feels unnatural. The feeble lightness of my torch is at least a poor comfort in this abyss.
We're still crawling. Crawling downward. That's something you never want to be doing. Such an unnatural state. Look at this. It's like a larger version of those crystals. But there's something on the ground, almost as if containing it within its point. The material of this artifact fluctuates and glows dimly. Its surface radiates a heat that is unusually soothing. And found right next to a save point, maybe this is their energy source, the same stuff as the smaller rocks, and maybe even the source of power for those barriers. Given the coloration, it seems almost certain. But this is the first time we've found one so large. These statues are all over this tunnel.
An icy wind aroused from these tunnels. The torchlight dim. Was it a mere trick of my imagination?
Take your pick. A trick of the imagination, the torch's light dimming, or the fact that light just doesn't get you as far down here. That this darkness isn't an absence of light, but rather a presence all its own. It's like we're being observed, as if we ourselves have been making a pilgrimage this entire time. But this one seems darkened, chipped, corrupted, leaving a black mark on the ground. Is this a defective one? This artifact bears a resemblance to the one that I encountered earlier. Yet this time its surface is cold and lifeless. The passage of the centuries may have rendered this relic inert. Well, given how much time it's been, it seems doubtful. It seems like something would have been done to it, unless it's much older than the other one, which raises its own questions. We know that this civilization is almost unimaginably ancient, but how much of a time period did it exist for? In a place where their batteries last for eons, did they have time to have dead batteries? The way these effects kind of creep in from the side of our screen, it's like these sounds are clawing at the back of our mind. Like we feel pursued and pushed forward. But the last thing we want to do is turn back, even if it would be a better idea. Was it just me, or was my view rotating in a very strange way just there? It is conceivable that the inhabitants of the city fabricated these artifacts to illuminate these depths. Astoundingly, a handful of them continue to cast their light after countless centuries. Surprisingly, a well-preserved fresco adorns this wall, defying the ravages of time. The creatures depicted in this painting are grotesque, an amalgam of a frog, a reptile, the mythic satyr, and a human. In fact, they look just like these little statues. But what is it approaching? A person on a horse, maybe? There are gaps, and those gaps are extremely important. Some long-faced creature. In fact, I may have seen something like it in one of my visions. The beings pictured in these frescoes are abhorrent, causing me to question if the people of the city were humans at all. Yet the reason impels me to accept the theory of these creatures, being an allegorical representation of the inhabitants. Are you really sure? Safe in that assumption? Several of the eldritch creatures depicted in this fresco are crawling. Could it be that these cramped tunnels were intentionally constructed to evoke the nightmarish fantasy that they once roamed the very depths of this city? Again, why are you so sure that this is fantasy? Actually, it looks kinda like the biblical devil. Or, well, not biblical, but that's a whole other thing that I'm not really well researched enough to comment on. Suffice to say, that's not strictly true. Point is, they were afraid of horned, goat-like creatures that slightly resembled a human. You seem so sure that they were bent on emulating a nightmare. You're not considering the possibility that they were just living one. One which we appear about to revive. And it's only in this moment that I realize I haven't even been paying attention to how deep we're traveling. I've no idea for how long I've been down here, but my torch just extinguished itself.
Has succumbed to the void. I must urgently seek a new source of light, as this abyss is hungry for the last remnants of my sanity.
And you believe that only the light can ward it off. There is no source for this pink light. Now that we see this image again, it looks like a nose, a bloody mouth, and more eyes in the stars above them. This wooden case bears an unsettling resemblance to a coffin. It's miraculous that the material has not succumbed to the inexorable ravages of time. Should this wooden box have served as a casket for the inhabitants of the city, it is plausible that these torturous tunnels served as a necropolis. And we had to go this deep just to find the first ones? I finally get it. It's the darkness which claws at our sanity. Truly, it is a presence all its own, and that eye down there is still lit. I don't have time to stop and think about it. I have to keep moving. They erected barriers down here as well. Okay, let's try and be quick on our glyphs. Spell. And here we are. Take a breather. They're appearing closer and... Oh, I see. That one wasn't working. I should have been looking, but honestly, I was so excited to get through to the other side, I didn't even. Alright, straight to here. And now we can rest. Should we rest until all this goes away? Yes, but at no point during any of this do you even consider turning back. This is madness, continuing to reach your hand deeper and deeper into the grinder, thinking that surely there must be something worthwhile at the bottom. Even as you no longer have any hand to grab at your prize with. Alright, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. It's gotta be close, it's gotta be close. It's like diving on a lung full of air. We're just taking it on faith that there will be a pocket in the next chamber that we can breathe from. But what if there isn't? Oh, that is so far. That is so far, and it does not seem like we're actually capable of crawling any faster. Did they try to protect their coffins within the glow of these lights? You would think it would be unnecessary, but maybe it's warding off some kind of evil in the afterlife. My grim suspicions have been confirmed. These boxes served as coffins by the inhabitants of the city. Within this sarcophagus, a hideous mummy reposes, with shape only conceived in the most delirious of nightmares. Its very form resides beyond my comprehension, and I have long since forgotten it. Besides, the most unsettling of all is the unnatural state of preservation of the corpse. We can actually see you through the transparent lid, but it's like our brain is protecting us from perceiving it. So it's true, this city really wasn't inhabited by humans. An entirely different world before our own, right here on the earth we occupy. The empty coffins haunt me, almost the same as the occupied ones. A horrifying vision consumes my thoughts. The bodies of the deceased leaving their wooden graves, and wandering the city in a nightmarish procession. This is the first time I've ever seen a piece of media actually engage with the idea that once you get an idea in your head, even if it has no basis in your experience, you can't get it out. But another ability waits for us at the top of this chamber. Are some of these platforms floating? The creatures depicted in the frescoes bear a resemblance to the mummies inside the wood cases. Could it be that the inhabitants of the city transform the bodies of their deceased into grotesque reflections of the creatures represented in their paintings? Man, you will conceive of every thought besides this is just what they look like. These corridors were used as a crypt, yet no mural depicts representations of deaths or funeral customs. Why the reticence of the inhabitants of the city to immortalize death in the frescoes, while they preserve their deceased within wooden cases? I don't know, man. Life's full of contradictions. We don't need answers to everything. The importance of these eldritch beings must have been vast, as they hold first place among the frescoed walls and the funeral rites. A relentless vision lingers in my mind. These grotesque creatures crawling in these cramped tunnels, as if the very city was constructed for them. Took you a long time to come to terms with the obvious. Now, at first I was thinking, what is this telling us that we don't already know? And, well, now it's hitting me. The implications of this make that impossible to come to terms with. That's why it's taking us so long to arrive at the obvious.
was inundated by thousands memories, each of them a searing spike piercing my brain. Could these visions be the memories of the inhabitants of the city? The line between reality and these eldritch visions blurs my cognition to an indistinct haze.
Seems like only now you're starting to understand. Now when you're forced to. Wait, what's the new one that we got? Cthulhu or Cthulhu? You know what? I'm gonna back out. I've spent too much time in the dark. Actually, wait. This appears to be the symbol that was at the bottom of these things. Maybe I can actually bring them back to life? I can. Those things aren't weathered by the centuries, they're just off. Everything in here comes down to simple switches. So can we start you as well? Kalaga seems to be closer to the pronunciation. But yes, this is how we do this. This is so... The thing is, it's presenting this in such a way where I sort of share in the excitement and the terror. So many games feel like they have to choose between one or the other. Then again, maybe this is a false confidence. You skittered away. Maybe these statues aren't statues at all, but rather hardened, calcified corpses. Is that possible? And is it possible that something more could actually still be alive down here? The city still hides at night. Maybe they hide from the daylight themselves? The absence of any representation of death in their murals continues to perplex me. It is plausible that the inhabitants of the city harbored a belief in some semblance of immortality, a delusion that the bodies within the coffins would somehow endure for eternity. Well, this is pretty close, don't you think? Maybe they don't actually die in the conventional sense. Are we sure that they're not just sleeping? I mean, think really hard about that. Are we really sure? Because with us being down here, that's kind of important. I've got only these inexplicable pink lights to guide me now. But the deeper I go, I've long since stopped thinking about how deep I really am. I just can't help but think that I've got to be getting close to something. Then again, nope, wrong one. I need to go back. Nope, but there's no time. I think I've cooked myself this time. I'm dead. Oh, is this something? You look like something. There's a save. It seems like our progress is preserved upon deaths, which is really, really strange. We're down deep in the canyon. At night, in the middle of one of these sandstorms. A fresco depicting a desert landscape bearing a resemblance to the desert surrounding the city. Yet this mural has a remarkable difference. a body of water near the bottom of the painting. Eons ago, could it be that the sea once stretched near to these barren lands? Well, it must have. The buildings depicted at the left of this fresco bear a striking resemblance to the Nameless city. The presence of the body of water in this painting is a haunting revelation, as it suggests that it was constructed during primordial times, and that its ruins survived the bygone sea. This one depicts glyphs over what looks like some ancient leviathan. A depiction of some grotesque sea creatures. Their very form conveys chaos. Could they have dwelled in the antediluvian sea around the city? The presence of some strange symbols carved on their skin, akin to the glyphs I've been collecting during my exploration, suggests that these beasts and the sigils have a mysterious connection. Perhaps I could do something with this? It doesn't seem so. What if I tried dispelling? No. This fresco depicts the city more akin as it is nowadays. As the sea has already retreated, they persisted after that. The foreboding night sky hints at the city's descent into decay and obscurity, as it lost its once prolific connection to the sea and the creatures that dwelled it. Is that a body in a coffin? The room depicted in the fresco bears similarities to a chamber that I'd previously encountered. A profane altar at the left and a mysterious idol at the right. No, not a coffin. The altar up above where we first encountered a statue. Yet the altar is now adorned with a grotesque form that resembles a dismembered human corpse. How could it be that the inhabitants of the city were depicted as gruesome creatures in other frescoes, yet they are represented as precise humans in this painting? If my assumptions are even remotely accurate. What if they're not? What if these were beasts that, in times long past, captured humans for sacrifice to their gods? Their gods who, if that ribcage is anything to go by, may very well have been very real. A circular structure made of stone surrounded by water, and an altar at its center. This painting strongly implies that the profane rituals practiced by the inhabitants of the city were offerings dedicated to a sea deity. The enigmatic half-open gigantic door unveils a formless cloud of otherworldly colors, unnatural for the mortal realm, and perhaps the very abode of the aforementioned god. Do they perhaps have some way of speaking with it directly? I don't want to look down, but the darkness is making it harder and harder to see the ground against the lower pits of the canyon.
My initial presumption that the depicted creatures were representations of humans was just a shield against the profound horrors that dwell within the city's depths. A truth so unspeakable that I dare not express it with the voice of my conscious mind.
Water. We've actually reached a subterranean flooded chamber. But it's only ankle deep. I have to stay within the light. I don't have a source of my own. A allowing the pillars to guide me. Another of these altars. It's as if my entire path through this city, maybe even from the point of discovery, has been leading me down the same path that maybe they all walked. Lie down on the altar. Do we feel compelled to do so?
Recollections of my visit to the Nameless city are an amalgam of an eldritch nightmare and an uncanny reality. Amidst that hazy fog are my memories. A vivid sensation endures. Inexorable dread of being pulled into an otherworldly abyss of light. Those silhouettes, the eerie forms of the crawling reptiles of the Nameless city, against the luminous ether of the abyss. Indelible mark that is etched in my worst nightmares at night is the vision of the grotesque, gargantuan beast that reigned over the city beyond the void of night.
So that was the Nameless City. Oh, it actually was an H.P. Lovecraft story. I don't know if that's an exact... I don't know if it's a straight adaptation or if it's simply inspired, but either way, that was incredible. I love how it's driven by your curiosity. It didn't feel the need to have, like, gimmicks such as, like, random jump scares or creatures down in the deep. It's just the constant dread creeping in as we make further and further discoveries, and as we sort of start to dwell in our own insanity that comes about not from the game simply telling us that we have gone insane, but by our drive to move forward even against every instinct telling us that we shouldn't. It understood that Lovecraftian horror isn't about creatures with tentacles coming out of their face. It's about the fear of knowledge. Knowledge that fundamentally changes our entire perception of reality and our place in it, in a way that completely shatters our mind once we make this revelation. And this game was about revelations. It was about coming in, exploring this, and comparing everything to civilizations that we've unearthed in the past. In other words, comparing things beyond our experience to our own experiences. And the deeper we go, the more we realize how tenuous that connection actually is, how little it applies. The narration here works really well as a framing device because it's a story that we're being told after the fact. You might think it's kind of jarring that, we're just recalling this whole trip and somehow we got out of whatever reality-bending horror it was we witnessed at the end. But that's the point. Our experiences here broke our brain. possibly some defense mechanism to protect ourselves because the reality would drive us to complete madness. It's outright stated here that our memory is unreliable, either because it's distorted to protect us from the reality of the things we saw, or whether pieces of this are even outright fabrications. It may seem almost a given in this genre that we wouldn't be able to look into the eyes of some eldritch horror and live to tell about it. But what would cosmic horror be if there wasn't some old explorer in the tavern, hands shaking, talking to anyone who will listen about what he saw? And if you like this video, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more creepy and comfy content. If you have any ideas for other videos you think I should do, the best place to suggest that will be at the Discord, which I will link in the description. If you want to try this game out for yourself, that link will also be in the description. If it's not out yet by the time this comes out, it releases July 12th. If you want to support me on Patreon, that link will be in the description. And as always, I will see you in the next one.